And their prices are right, I hear.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's right.
can't beat it.
More normality. All right, let's go ahead and look outside. It's a beautiful day, of course, and wow. Can't really ask for much more than that. A little bit of haze, that tells us that the marine layer is lurking, and also those high clouds. That's part of the monsoon flow coming up out of the southeast. And also, there it is with regard to lightning strikes. Lots of lightning activity, but this monsoon, this year anyways, we've had a lot of moisture involved, so that's really good news. We're actually picking up some rain totals in many parts of the west, and it's just all good, and hopefully all those little flashes of lightning you can see right there are not going to cause anybody any grief. Widespread watches and a few warnings for flash flooding. I know in Arizona they've actually had probably a little bit too much, and even in Colorado, so they're getting a lot of activity. Those flashing ones, those are flash flood warnings right now. In those boxes you see, those are areas that are either under flood or expected to lose the flood issue very soon. Now for us, of course, there's nothing to deal with. That's good news. A little bit of heat issues to our north. And the rain totals, look at that. Wow. Picking up in some parts of the desert southeast over a quarter to a half an inch. All good there, so we'll go ahead and take it. And the tropics, very busy right there in the middle. That is Hilda, and sort of bookending Hilda is the next storms, and it could either be Ignacio or Jimena, depending on which of those two, those X's right there, decide to form into something. And it's a possibility that both of them will become named systems. So a busy Pacific tropic-wise. And right now, 83 degrees in Paso Robles, 66 in Lompoc, and a 66 down in Oxnard. Wind, luckily, very light. I know there were a couple of fires out there, so hopefully those will not be any wind issue driven. And your humidity values, fairly pumped up right along the beaches. Inland areas, of course, a little drier, so that means the marine layer is lurking out there. Big area of hot temperatures and steamy. They have heat indexes. That's where you add the temperature to the what would be called the feels like temperature. You add it to the humidity, and some areas are around 108, 110, even though officially they might only have maybe a low 100. That's real steamy and hot. Of course, the Pacific coast, dry right along the coastline, but inland areas are getting some of that monsoon moisture, and hopefully, again, not to sound like a broken record, not too much in the way of dry lightning. So that's the good news. We've done okay with the monsoon. And there's your future fog for tomorrow morning. Pretty socked in for many beaches. Maybe a little northerly flow keeps some portions of the south coast high and dry as far as the marine layer. You clear to the beaches in most areas by the afternoon. And then as we head into early Monday, we see a familiar pattern. But it looks like maybe the marine layer takes a little bit of a nap possibly on Monday. So that can kind of happen. We get those days where it ebbs and flows. But overall, we do expect to see just more of the same, which is a strong marine influence across the region. There's your high temperatures, and there's that 83 in Gaviota. So the computer is definitely kind of feeling out that maybe we're having a tad bit of a north flow there over the next day. Probably won't get quite into the 80s in Gaviota, but there's always that chance with a north flow. And also, look at Gaviota, 91. Not going to buy that. Maybe I should go ahead and block that. But sometimes the computer really bites into these offshore flows and these little microclimates. But overall, really, from Sunday to Monday, we don't expect a big change, just another nice day across the board. And as far as your local area, we'll go with a mild afternoon for the Santa Barbara South Coast. 70s again. Wow, we've been saying that a lot. It's been a quiet July for the most part. I know we did have a little bit of a heat wave here and there, but overall, really quiet month. And it looks like August is going to start the same way. So there's your temperatures. Paso Robles will go up into the upper 80s, maybe low 90s. Clouds and mild conditions. Nipomo, look at that, a 71, and back out toward the beaches. Of course, it gets a little cool around Morro Bay, Los Osos, where you really kind of stick out with that onshore flow, and so that fog really socks in there. Ventura 68, Oxnard, more out toward the freeway Rose. That's where the National Weather Service is, and that's where they get that temperature, around 77 degrees. I should say actually closer to the Rice exit of the 101. And Camarillo, a beautiful 79 degrees. Surf, or lack of surf is what I'll call it, is really small, and those onshore winds are making it a little bit ugly and also a little on the cool side water temperature wise. But more swell is expected by Monday out of the south and southwest, so that's good news there. And your high tide and low tide